"Apologize," my mother pointed at me from across the living room. Around her stood my brother, my aunt, my uncle, and two cousins. Every face in the room carried the same expression: disappointment, anger, judgment, and every one of them was directed at me. The problem? I wasn't the person who caused the disaster. My brother was. He had lied. He had hidden debts. He had nearly destroyed the family business. Yet somehow, I was the one being ordered to say sorry. Looking back, there was only one rule in my family. Only one person was allowed to make mistakes. Everyone else had to pay for them. My brother was the golden child, the favorite, the son who always got another chance. I was the scapegoat, the person expected to fix problems, keep the peace, and take the blame. That night, nobody cared about the truth. They cared about protecting the family story, the story where my brother was the victim and I was the problem. For years, I accepted that role. I stayed quiet. I cleaned up messes that weren't mine. I apologized for things I didn't do. But this time was different. Because a few days later, I discovered something that exposed every lie they had built their story on. And when I finally revealed it, the same people pointing fingers at me couldn't say a single word. This is the story of how my family made me the villain and how I forced them to face the truth. Looking back, that night didn't start in the living room. It started years earlier. From the outside, my family looked normal. Respectable parents, holiday dinners, smiling family photos, the kind of family people admired. But inside the house, there were different rules for different people. My brother Tyler was the golden child, the favorite, the one everyone protected. If Tyler made a mistake, people made excuses. If he wasted money, he was learning. If he lied, he didn't mean it. If he failed, he deserved another chance. There was always a reason, always a second chance, always someone ready to defend him. Then there was me, the reliable one, the responsible one, the son who was expected to understand. At first, I thought that was a compliment. Later, I realized it meant something else. It meant I was the person expected to carry the weight. Whenever Tyler created a problem, I was expected to help fix it. Whenever conflict happened, I was expected to keep the peace. Over time, an unwritten rule developed in our family. When Tyler messed up, he was just being Tyler. When I messed up, I was selfish, ungrateful, disrespectful. Nobody ever said those rules out loud. They didn't have to. Everyone followed them, including me. For years, I believed that if I worked hard enough and stayed loyal enough, things would eventually become fair. Instead, the opposite happened. The more I tolerated, the more everyone expected. And by the time this story began, my family no longer saw me as a son. They saw me as the person who would always take the blame when the golden child broke something. The favoritism didn't happen all at once. It happened in small ways, so small that if you complained, people said you were being dramatic. When Tyler wanted a better car, my parents helped him. When I needed help, I was told to work harder. When Tyler changed colleges for the second time, the family supported him. When I paid my own way through school, nobody mentioned it. The pattern repeated for years. Tyler received opportunities. I received responsibilities. Tyler received praise. I received expectations. At first, I ignored it. Then the problems started getting bigger. Tyler borrowed money and never paid it back. Someone else covered for him, usually my parents, sometimes me. He signed agreements he couldn't keep, missed deadlines, made promises he never intended to honor, and somehow every mess landed in my lap. I became the family repairman, not for houses, for consequences. If Tyler offended someone, I was expected to smooth things over. If he damaged a business relationship, I was expected to fix it. If he owed money, I was expected to help find a solution. The worst part wasn't the work. It was the way everyone acted like it was normal. Whenever I questioned it, the answers were always the same. He's family. He's going through a hard time. You know how Tyler is. Those words became a shield protecting him from accountability. Meanwhile, I was held accountable for everything, including problems I didn't create. Year after year, the imbalance grew. Tyler became more reckless because someone always rescued him, and I became more exhausted because I was usually the one doing the rescuing. Looking back, that's when the real damage started. Not when Tyler made mistakes, when the family decided he should never have to face the consequences of them. And sooner or later, a system like that always collapses. The moment everything finally exploded started with one of Tyler's great opportunities. At least, that's what he called it. He had convinced my parents to invest in a business venture with a friend. According to Tyler, it was guaranteed money, a chance to double their investment within a year, a chance for the family to build real wealth. Everyone believed him, everyone except me. The numbers didn't make sense. The promises sounded too good, and the more questions I asked, the more defensive Tyler became. My parents told me I was being negative. My aunt accused me of never supporting my brother, so I backed off. I knew how these conversations always ended. A few months later, the investment collapsed. The money was gone. Not thousands, hundreds of thousands. Years of savings disappeared almost overnight. The family was shocked. My parents were devastated. And Tyler immediately started looking for someone else to blame. At first, he blamed the business partner, then the economy, then bad luck. But none of those explanations solved the real problem. The family needed an answer. More importantly, they needed a scapegoat. Someone to absorb the anger. Someone to protect the golden child from consequences. And just like always, all eyes turned toward me. Suddenly, people started asking why I hadn't done more, why I hadn't stopped the investment, why I hadn't convinced my parents to pull out sooner. The accusations were ridiculous. I wasn't the one who made the deal. I wasn't the one who signed anything. I wasn't even included in most of the discussions. Yet somehow I became responsible for the outcome. Then came the family meeting. The same meeting where everyone stood around me demanding an apology. Not because I lost the money, because I refused to help Tyler escape accountability for losing it. That was the moment everything became clear. For years, I thought my family was dysfunctional. I was wrong. It was a system designed to protect one person at all costs. And from that moment on, I understood the truth. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a blame machine. And I was the fuel that kept it running. After the investment collapsed, I thought my family would finally hold Tyler accountable. I was wrong. The moment the losses became impossible to hide, everyone switched into damage control mode, not to fix the problem, to protect Tyler. My parents stopped talking about what he had done. My aunt started rewriting the story. According to her, nobody could have predicted what happened. According to Tyler, he was just as much a victim as everyone else. Within days, the family wasn't discussing responsibility anymore. They were discussing secrecy. Don't tell anyone. Let's keep this private. We don't need the whole town talking about our family." At first, those requests sounded reasonable. Then they became demands. Every time I suggested being honest with the people affected, someone accused me of trying to embarrass the family. Every time I brought up Tyler's role, I was told to let it go. The message was clear. The truth wasn't the problem. Exposure was. Then came the part that pushed me over the edge. Instead of making Tyler clean up the mess, they handed the responsibility to me. I was asked to call angry investors. I was asked to speak with business contacts. I was asked to explain delays, broken promises, and missing money. In some cases, I was expected to apologize on behalf of a decision I never made. One afternoon, my father handed me a list of people to contact. People Tyler had convinced to invest. People who trusted our family name. I remember staring at the paper in disbelief. Tyler lost the money. Tyler made the promises. Tyler created the disaster. Yet somehow, I was the one expected to face the consequences. And the worst part? Everyone acted like that was completely normal. That's when I realized something had changed. This wasn't about helping family anymore. This was about protecting the golden child at any cost, even if that cost was me. For a while, I did what I had always done. I stayed quiet. I made the calls. I apologized to people I didn't owe apologies to. I cleaned up problems I didn't create. But eventually, something inside me snapped. Not dramatically, not all at once. I simply started asking questions. Why was I the one apologizing for Tyler's mistakes? Why was I expected to repair relationships he damaged? Why did everyone keep talking about protecting him instead of fixing the actual problem? The moment those questions left my mouth, the atmosphere changed. Nobody answered them. Instead, they attacked me. My aunt was the first. "You're being too sensitive." My mother said I was making everything harder. An uncle accused me of holding grudges. Every concern I raised was immediately turned back on me. According to them, the problem wasn't Tyler's behavior. The problem was my reaction to it. Then came the word I heard over and over again. Jealous. Apparently, I wasn't frustrated. I was jealous. Jealous that Tyler received attention. Jealous that people cared about him. Jealous that he was still being supported. It was absurd. But after hearing the same accusation from enough people, even I started questioning myself. That's how gaslighting works. It doesn't convince you they're right. It convinces you to doubt what you already know. Then Tyler played his favorite card, the victim card. During one family meeting, he suddenly started talking about how much pressure he was under, how everyone expected too much from him, how difficult the investment failure had been for him. Before long, he was wiping tears from his eyes. And just like that, the entire conversation shifted. Nobody cared about the money anymore. Nobody cared about the people hurt by his decisions. The focus became Tyler's feelings. My mother comforted him. My aunt defended him. Several relatives started looking at me like I was attacking someone who was already suffering. The man who caused the disaster became the victim. And the person asking questions became the villain. That's when I realized I wasn't fighting for fairness. I was fighting against a family system that would rather protect a lie than face the truth. And in that system, the scapegoat is always the first person blamed for speaking up. The punishment didn't come all at once. It came piece by piece. First, I stopped getting invited to family gatherings. Birthdays happened without me. Holiday dinners happened without me. Conversations I used to be part of suddenly took place behind closed doors. When I asked about it, nobody gave a direct answer. They just said everyone needed space. Then the phone calls stopped. Relatives who used to check on me became distant. Messages went unanswered. People who had known me my entire life suddenly acted like they barely knew me. At first, I thought they were avoiding conflict. Later, I learned something much worse. They weren't avoiding me. They were hearing stories about me, stories my family was telling. According to Tyler, I was bitter. According to my aunt, I was creating drama. According to others, I was obsessed with money and angry because I wasn't getting my way. The rumors spread faster than I could respond. Every conversation painted the same picture. I was disrespectful. I was selfish. I was tearing the family apart. The truth didn't matter. Most people only heard one side. And my family made sure it wasn't mine. What hurt most wasn't losing invitations. It wasn't the gossip. It was realizing how quickly people believed it. People I had helped for years suddenly questioned my character. People who knew how much I had sacrificed now looked at me with suspicion. Meanwhile, Tyler remained the victim. The struggling son, the misunderstood brother, the man everyone needed to support. By the end of that year, I had lost more than family events. I had lost my reputation. I had lost the sense of belonging I spent my entire life protecting. For years, I believed family was my safety net. Now that net was gone. And for the first time, I found myself completely alone. Not just without support, without a place where I felt I belonged. That was the real cost of becoming the scapegoat. They didn't just take my voice, they took my name, and they made sure everyone believed I deserved it. 3 months after the investment collapsed, my mother called and asked me to come over. She said the family wanted to clear the air, find peace, move forward. The moment I walked into the living room, I knew that wasn't true. Everyone was already there. My parents, my aunt, my uncle, several relatives, and Tyler. It felt less like a family gathering and more like a courtroom. One by one, people started speaking. Not about Tyler, about me. They said I was creating division. They said I was holding grudges. They said I cared more about being right than protecting the family. Every complaint pointed in the same direction, me. Whenever I tried to explain what had actually happened, someone interrupted. Whenever I mentioned Tyler's role, the conversation immediately shifted back to my behavior. The outcome had already been decided. Then my aunt finally said it. If you really care about this family, you'll apologize and move on. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at me, waiting, expecting, demanding an apology. Not from the person who lost the money, not from the person who caused the problem, from me. That's when I looked at Tyler. He was leaning back in his chair with a slight smirk on his face. Not relief, not gratitude, satisfaction. He knew exactly what was happening. Everyone else was carrying the blame for him, and he was enjoying it. In that moment, something inside me changed. For years, I had been the one fixing problems, the one making peace, the one cleaning up after everyone else. But I was exhausted. Not from the money, not from the arguments, from being used. As I looked around the room, I finally understood the truth. This wasn't a family trying to heal. It was a system trying to protect its favorite person. And for the first time in my life, I decided I wasn't going to fix it anymore. I stood up, walked out, and left them sitting there. That was my lowest point, and it was also the moment everything started to change. After the family meeting, I didn't go home right away. I sat alone in my car for almost an hour. No music, no phone calls, just silence. For years, I had believed that if I explained myself clearly enough, people would eventually understand. That night finally killed that belief. When I checked my phone, there was a message from my mother. Please stop making the family look bad. That was it. Not a single word about what Tyler had done. Not a single word about the money. Not a single word about the lies. Just another reminder that protecting the family image mattered more than the truth. And that's when it hit me. In this family, the truth was never the priority. What they needed was a scapegoat. Someone to absorb the blame so the golden child could stay golden. For the first time, I stopped feeling hurt. I started paying attention. A few days later, the switch flipped completely. An old business contact called me. Someone Tyler had worked with during the investment deal. After a few minutes of awkward conversation, he said something that froze me. You know you're taking the fall for him, right? Then he forwarded several messages, screenshots, payment records, conversations I had never seen before. The documents showed Tyler had known the investment was in trouble long before anyone else. Even worse, he had been telling different stories to different people. The moment I saw those messages, the sadness disappeared. What replaced it was colder, calmer, more dangerous. I stopped trying to prove I was innocent. Instead, I started asking one question. What can I prove? That night, I made a decision. Arguing with toxic people was a losing game. Evidence was different. Evidence doesn't cry. Evidence doesn't manipulate. Evidence doesn't rewrite history. So, I created 3 rules: no more verbal arguments, no more private meetings, no more important conversations without a record. If something mattered, it needed a trail, a message, an email, a document. Then I started building a timeline. Every loan Tyler received, every debt someone else covered, every crisis he created. Every time I was pushed forward to clean up the mess. The pattern became obvious almost immediately. Whenever Tyler failed, somebody protected him. Whenever consequences appeared, somebody redirected them toward me. I organized everything into 3 categories: hard evidence, bank records, invoices, contracts, payment histories; soft evidence, texts, emails, voice messages, conversations people forgot I still had; and finally, witnesses, business contacts, former partners, people outside the family who had seen what really happened. The deeper I dug, the less unique the story became. Tyler wasn't the problem. He was the symptom. The real problem was the system protecting him. Then an older cousin I trusted agreed to meet me. After listening to everything, he leaned back and said something I'll never forget. Golden children don't create themselves. Families create them, and people like you pay the bill. Then he pointed out something I had missed. Every major decision had one thing in common. The same people protected Tyler. The same people benefited. The same people controlled the story. Suddenly, the target became clear. I didn't need to expose one lie. I needed to expose the entire system. For the first time in my life, I stopped worrying about being the good son. I stopped worrying about keeping peace. I accepted that I might lose the version of family I had been fighting to protect, because the truth was, that family never really existed. And as strange as it sounds, that realization felt freeing. I started practicing a new word. No. No, I won't apologize. No, I won't take responsibility for your choices. No, I won't carry your shame anymore. I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than loved for accepting humiliation. Then I went silent. For several days, I stopped pushing, stopped questioning, stopped reacting. I even sent a calm message. Maybe we should sit down and talk this through. Exactly what they wanted to hear, exactly what they expected. They thought I was finally ready to surrender. They thought I was coming back to ask for forgiveness. They had no idea I was coming back for something else. I was coming back to bury the entire golden child system they had spent years building. After deciding to stop being the family scapegoat, I had to face an uncomfortable truth. My entire life had been built around earning approval, keeping the peace, being useful, being the person everyone could depend on. So the first thing I changed wasn't my family, it was me. I stopped sending long messages explaining myself, stopped trying to correct rumors, stopped reaching out hoping someone would finally understand my side. For years, I had been chasing acceptance from people who benefited from misunderstanding me. I was done. Instead, I focused on rebuilding the basics. A stable routine, consistent work, regular sleep. Simple things that sound small until your life starts falling apart. Little by little, the noise in my head became quieter. And the quieter it became, the clearer everything looked. Then I created 3 rules. Rules that should have existed years earlier. First, I would no longer have important conversations with people who were attacking me emotionally. Second, I would never meet family members alone when conflict was involved. Third, every important discussion had to leave a trail. A text, an email, a document. Something that couldn't be rewritten later. At the same time, I started asking myself a different question. Not, why are they doing this? But, who benefits when I'm blamed? I wrote down every name, every conflict, every outcome. And a pattern started emerging. The same people who pushed the hardest against me were often the same people who gained the most from my silence. That realization changed everything. Because for the first time, I stopped waiting for fairness from my family. I stopped waiting for them to do the right thing. My job wasn't to change them. My job was to stand on my own feet. And until I could do that, nothing else mattered. Once I stopped reacting emotionally, I started mapping events, not opinions, not family stories, facts. I built a timeline stretching back years, every major conflict, every financial mistake, every family crisis. And beside each event, I wrote 3 questions. What did Tyler do? Who protected him? Who paid the price? The pattern appeared almost immediately. Tyler made reckless decisions. Someone in the family covered for him, and somehow I ended up carrying the consequences. I dug deeper. Whenever Tyler borrowed money and didn't repay it, who defended him? My parents. Whenever he damaged a relationship, who was sent to smooth things over? Me. Whenever relatives became angry, who was told to apologize and keep the peace? Again, me. Then I started writing down the exact phrases people used. We're family. Don't be selfish. Be the bigger person. Let it go. For years, those words sounded like advice. Now I saw them for what they really were. Tools. Ways to push responsibility away from the golden child and onto the scapegoat. The roles became impossible to ignore. Tyler wasn't just the person causing damage. He was the protected one. My parents weren't solving problems. They were protecting a system. And my role in that system was painfully clear. I was the pressure valve. The person expected to absorb blame so everyone else could stay comfortable. Every time Tyler failed, the family needed a firefighter, someone to calm people down, someone to take responsibility, someone to sacrifice. That someone was always me. By the end of the week, my timeline covered several pages, and one realization stood above everything else. This wasn't a single argument. It wasn't one bad decision. It wasn't even about Tyler. It was a pattern repeated for years, a system. And once I saw the system, I couldn't unsee it. Once I understood the pattern, I stopped looking for opinions. I started looking for proof. The first thing I collected was hard evidence. Bank transfers showing money I had paid to cover Tyler's mistakes. Receipts connected to debts he never repaid. Messages asking me to handle problems he created. The more I searched, the more records I found. Then I moved to business documents, emails from partners frustrated by broken promises, contracts that collapsed after Tyler failed to deliver, conversations showing I had been sent in afterward to repair the damage. For years, I thought those incidents were isolated. Now I could see the same story repeating again and again. I also spoke with people outside the family, former business contacts, friends, people who had dealt directly with Tyler. Several told nearly identical stories. Tyler created the problem. Someone else cleaned it up. Usually me. Then came the softer evidence. Voice messages, old chats, screenshots, small things I once ignored. Comments like, "Just take the blame this once. Don't make this harder for the family. You know you're better at handling these situations." At the time, those messages seemed harmless. Now they looked very different. They showed a pattern of expectation, a belief that I was supposed to carry responsibilities that belonged to someone else. As the evidence grew, I realized something important. The documents weren't my leverage. The truth behind them was, my family wasn't afraid of arguments. They were afraid of exposure. They were afraid relatives would learn what really happened. Afraid business contacts would connect the dots. Afraid the people protecting Tyler would finally be forced to answer questions. For the first time, the balance started shifting. Because I finally possessed something they couldn't twist, something they couldn't gaslight, something they couldn't talk their way around. The truth, documented, dated, and backed by evidence. Once the evidence was organized, I stopped pushing. No more questions, no more arguments, no more attempts to defend myself. Instead, I sent a simple message. Maybe we should sit down and talk this through. Exactly what they wanted to hear. Within minutes, people started responding. My mother sounded relieved. My aunt suddenly became friendly again. Tyler acted like the conflict was finally ending. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't looking for peace. I was looking for clarity. So I arranged the meeting carefully. Not at someone's house, not behind closed doors, a neutral place, a place with a witness, a written record, and email confirmations showing who agreed to what. Then I prepared a few simple questions. Questions that sounded harmless. Who asked me to apologize that day? Who decided I should handle the investors? Who told me it was my responsibility? The questions weren't important by themselves. What mattered was hearing everyone answer them. Because people telling the truth usually tell the same story. People protecting a lie don't. As the meeting approached, I stayed quiet and let them grow comfortable. Let them believe I was finally giving in. Let them believe I was ready to apologize. And the more confident they became, the less careful they were. Exactly what I needed. Because I wasn't going back to fix the family. I was going back to expose the system. And while they thought I was returning to say sorry, I was returning to close the book on the blame game they had built around me for years. A week later, I sent a message. Let's meet and settle this properly. To my surprise, everyone agreed. My parents, my aunt, and of course, Tyler. The meeting took place at a law office. Not a family dining room, not a living room where people could shout over each other. A place where facts mattered. The moment everyone sat down, I spoke first. I'm not here to argue, I'm here for the truth. Tyler rolled his eyes. My aunt sighed dramatically. The attorney simply opened his notebook. Then he asked a basic question. Who was responsible for the investment decisions? Tyler answered immediately. It wasn't one person's decision. Then he launched into a long explanation about teamwork, misunderstandings, and bad luck. I stayed silent. The attorney let him talk. The more Tyler spoke, the more obvious his attitude became. Nothing was ever his fault. Everything had an excuse. Everything had someone else to blame. When he finally stopped, the attorney wrote 3 questions on a sheet of paper. Who received the benefit? Who paid the cost? Who carried the blame? Nobody answered. Then came the first piece of evidence. Bank records, transfer histories, payment confirmations. The attorney placed them on the table one by one. Several transactions showed money leaving my accounts to cover debts connected to Tyler's failed investment. Other records showed funds going directly to Tyler. The attorney tapped the documents. Money leaves a trail. The room became noticeably quieter. Then I opened another folder, printed text messages, emails, screenshots. Nothing dramatic, just facts. Messages saying, just apologize and move on. Tell them it was your mistake. Don't make the family look bad. The attorney looked toward my parents. Why was he repeatedly being asked to accept responsibility for actions connected to someone else? My mother immediately started talking about family unity. My father talked about keeping peace. Neither answered the question, because neither could. Then came the final document, the investment agreement itself. The attorney highlighted several sections, the signatures, the dates, the obligations. The person authorizing decisions wasn't me. The person receiving benefits wasn't me. The person making commitments wasn't me. Yet somehow I had been turned into the public face of the failure. Tyler shifted in his chair. For the first time all afternoon, he looked uncomfortable, then angry, then desperate. Suddenly, he claimed I had volunteered. Then he claimed I misunderstood. Then he claimed I was jealous of him. The story kept changing. The evidence didn't. The attorney finally interrupted. His voice was calm, cold, professional. I don't evaluate feelings. I evaluate facts. Silence. The entire room went quiet. Then I spoke. Not loudly, not emotionally, just honestly. I never hated Tyler because he was loved. I looked directly at my parents. I hated being used as the person who cleaned up every mess so nobody had to admit what he did. Nobody argued, nobody interrupted, because the documents were sitting right there between us. Years of excuses, destroyed by paperwork. The attorney closed the final folder. Then he delivered the sentence that changed everything. This appears to be a repeated pattern. One individual created the damage. Another individual absorbed the consequences. For years, I had tried to explain that. He proved it in one sentence. Then I gave them two choices: correct the lies, stop the accusations, put everything in writing, or let the evidence continue speaking for itself. For years, I was the one begging people to believe me. That day, the roles finally reversed. Now, they were the ones asking me to stop. The calls started the moment I left the law office. My phone kept vibrating. Missed calls, messages, voicemails. Just a few weeks earlier, these same people wanted me to apologize. Now they wanted me to answer. That's the thing about golden child syndrome. When the truth comes out, the system doesn't disappear. It just changes tactics. The first call came from my mother. Her voice was softer than usual. "Son, we're still family. We all made mistakes. Please don't make this bigger than it needs to be." Years ago, those words would have worked. They would have filled me with guilt. Now they sounded different. Not because she changed, because I finally understood what they meant. She wasn't asking for peace. She was asking for protection. I asked her one question. "Did you tell the truth in that room today?" There was a long pause. Then she changed the subject. That was my answer. A few hours later, Tyler called. To my surprise, he started crying. For about 10 seconds, then came the excuses. He blamed pressure. He blamed bad advice. He blamed misunderstandings. According to him, nobody intended for things to go this far. Then he switched to bargaining. "Can't we just move on? Do we really need to keep doing this?" I opened an old message and read one line. The same line he sent when I was carrying the blame for his mistakes. "Just take the hit and move on." Silence. Complete silence. Then I said something I had wanted to say for years. "You're not upset because you hurt me. You're upset because the consequences finally found you." The crying stopped immediately. The anger returned. Suddenly I was selfish, vindictive, the person destroying the family. I ended the call. There was nothing left to discuss. The next day, my aunt called, the family expert on morality. She talked about keeping things private, about protecting the family's reputation, about handling matters internally. I listened for a minute before asking one question. If the family could handle things honestly, why did it need a scapegoat? She didn't answer. Instead, she started talking about the business, the money, the damage this could cause. And that's when I realized something. Nobody was calling because they cared about what happened to me. They cared about what they might lose. A few days later, they showed up at my apartment, my parents, Tyler, my aunt. They brought gifts, apologies, promises. I let them wait outside for several minutes before opening the door. Years ago, I waited for them. Now they were waiting for me. When we finally sat down, I kept things simple. No arguments, no family speeches, just boundaries. All future communication goes through writing. The lies stop. The smear campaign stops. The agreements get honored. I wasn't asking for love. I wasn't asking for approval. I was asking for accountability. Then Tyler asked one final question. A question that revealed everything. "So, what happens with the remaining money?" I looked at him and almost laughed. After everything that had happened, that was still his concern. I shook my head. "See? Even now, you're not afraid of losing me." The room went silent. "You're afraid of losing what benefits you." And judging by the look on his face, he knew I was right. After everything happened, I realized something. The biggest victory wasn't proving I was right. It wasn't exposing Tyler. And it wasn't making my family look at the evidence. The biggest victory was escaping the role they had assigned to me my entire life. The scapegoat. The person expected to carry blame so everyone else could stay comfortable. Looking back, I understand this now. Golden child syndrome doesn't destroy a family because one child is favored. It destroys a family because everyone agrees that another child should become the trash can for everyone else's mistakes. If this story taught me anything, it's these 3 lessons. First, favoritism is never an accident. When the same person is always protected and the same person is always blamed, that's not bad luck. That's a system. Second, scapegoats become addicted to proving they're good enough. I spent years trying to earn fairness, respect, and love. That was the trap. Because people who benefit from your silence will never reward you for it. Third, boundaries are not betrayal. The day I stopped accepting blame wasn't the day I became selfish. It was the day I finally started protecting myself. The truth is, I didn't lose my family that day. I lost the illusion that if I sacrificed enough, they would eventually change. And honestly, that was worth losing. I never hated the golden child because they were loved. I hated being used to keep them innocent. But this story isn't over, because after I stopped playing the scapegoat, they came back with a new plan. And this time, they tried to destroy the life I built without them. Comment 1 if you've ever been the scapegoat in your family. Comment 2 if you want the next part, when they tried to tear down my new life after losing control of me. In the next video, I'll tell you about the day they thought I'd finally break, and why they were wrong.